Good morning, everyone. I think my plan to come outside and hide behind this wall to block me from the wind and the noise it produces is actually working. Yes? I'll read a comment or comment a lot, go back inside if I need to, but I think we're like gusting to 8 right now, so I'm all right out here. Okay, let's get started. You will not be shocked to hear that the pastors here at the Epiphany Episcopal Church in beautiful Las Vegas often talk about things church-related. And not very long ago, we were talking about who would preach the Road to Emmaus gospel passage. And Rick and I were discussing how much we liked the passage, and it was clear between the two of us he was more deeply moved than I was by it. I think it's great, but it's one of the most important Bible stories in the whole entire book for him. And we both sort of understood that when you feel that close to a text, in some ways it's a tougher go to preach it. Because you know it so well, you love it so much, you can kind of lose your objectivity. If the Road to Emmaus was Rick's text that you got to sort of watch out for, I shared with him, I've really got to be careful when I preach the prodigal son, because I love that story entirely too much. I think it's the greatest story ever written. And when I preach it, I've got to tone the heck down, or I just alienate everybody except me, the biggest fan of the prodigal son. So I mention all this for a reason, because today's topic is also near and dear to me. And I can get entirely too excited about it, and I can think I know too much about it, and I can think I have too much to share about it. So, with that disclaimer, here I go. This morning, this beautiful Saturday morning, I would like to talk about tithing. Uh-oh! He's going to talk about money and ask for more. Yeah, maybe. What I'm going to talk about is actually the joy that comes from tithing. Now, let's just get all the hard part out of the way. In the Bible, the Old Testament basically says in a number of locations that we need to give 10% of all we get back to those places that spiritually feed us. That's what a tithe is. It's not a charitable gift. It is a taking a portion of one's blessing, acknowledging the blessing, and in so doing, we're acknowledging God as the source. 10% is a standard figure that gets kicked around a lot. A lot of people go, I could never give 10% of my salary. Well, it gets worse and gets harder, but I promised we're going to get all the hard part out at the beginning. Jesus talks a lot about money. And frankly, I mean, we're going to be totally honest, pastors don't talk this way because they're happy if they get 3%, 4% total from their congregation. We're not going to parish economics right now. We're talking theology. Jesus talks a lot about money, and there's even a story where the widow gives her last penny, and Jesus points her out. For one, he says it took incredible faith for her to do that. For her to give from her poverty is a statement of incredible faith in God's provision. Remembering, too, a widow 20 centuries ago was an entirely different category of poor and disempowered than it is now. Don't think you know what a widow in the first century means based on anything in the 21st century. She had no family, no connection, and the little bit of money she had, she gave it all to the temple. And Jesus points her out for two reasons. One, her faith is incredible, but also the acknowledgement that her faith is rare. So, the Old Testament and the New Testament give us the range for how much we're supposed to give to our spiritual source. It's between 10 and 100%. Now me, I'm only a 10%er. I don't give everything to God. But I like to think I give 10% or more of my time, treasure, and talent all the time, every year, to God, and I have for 3 decades. Long before I thought to go to seminary. I got tithes when I was 30 years old from people that I prayed with. And when I'd get money, I already had it. My wife and I had a business. We didn't spend the money we made. I would just add it already to the amount I tithed to the St. Paul's Episcopal Church, the Peace Covenant Presbyterian Church, and the Unity Church of the Keys. I was a member of 3 churches, and we divided up quite a bit of money, my wife and I, between those 3 churches. And if I got money, I just added it to the total we already gave them. It's good stuff, giving away money. And here's why. It's not because God is impressed by our generosity. It's because we teach ourselves the true order of the universe. We're reminding ourselves when we're generous that God is God and we are just the created, beloved children of God. A while back, Rick preached a sermon about the gospel of Schuller, about a woman who... Are we going in and out today? I don't know if my connectivity's a problem. Anyway, preached on a person who says she could discover God when she was getting a pedicure, or that if she was just at a pretty sunrise, that that's when she would, feel closest to God. The trouble with that is that Sheila then becomes the standard for defining what is godly and what is holy. And Sheila robs herself when she does that. The more we come out of ourselves and acknowledge a bigger God, the happier we're going to be. Because in all our imaginations, we're never going to imagine all the goodness of God. I'm in a video that went viral, and somewhere around 90 million people have seen it. There's one line in that video that I'm really proud of. I said to the 2 people I'm with, and then the 90 million people that saw the video, what if we think of God as all things true, knowing we don't know all things? What if God is just all things true, and we're always remembering that we don't know all things? Well, if we don't know all things, then we're always seeking. We're always desiring greater knowledge, a greater understanding of love, a greater capacity to love. And how is that related to tithing? Tithing reinforces the fact that we aren't God. I don't want to be the God of my life. I'm not smart enough. I don't have the perspective. I don't have the history. I want a God for whom 1,000 years is but a day, that my entire life is like that of a blade of grass. I want that perspective. I want that huge understanding, that wisdom, that peace that goes beyond all understanding. I want that God to bless me, and I want to acknowledge that God as often as possible. And one of the many ways I do that is to share back with God a portion of the incredible generosity, the incredible blessing I've received from God. Now, I know some of you got a bunch of questions this. You can write me personal emails, personal texts. Here's something I could say. Don't think I'm trying to get you to give money to the Epiphany Episcopal Church. That's perfectly okay. But the tithe goes to your understanding of where you are spiritually fed. Think of the places, the people, the times where you know your soul is being fed, being lifted, being taught. That is the place, that's the institution, that's the organization, the group, whatever, that you give your 10% to, minimum. That's the tithe. You think it's going to be a huge sacrifice? It's not, actually. Pretty soon after you're starting, you'll realize, wow, I should have done this my whole life. It really is empowering. It's a real perspective giver. And I could not recommend it more highly. We'll talk about this more. But in the meantime, let's enjoy this beautiful Saturday, and let's let ourselves feel how incredibly blessed, how immeasurably blessed we are by the God who creates, redeems, and sustains us. See you all tomorrow at the live stream. Bye-bye.